Hey there, welcome to Broadcast to Post. I'm Jeff Sengpeel, CTO at Keynote Media. This is the show where we interview leaders and experts in the AV, broadcast, and post-production spaces. We're giving you the inside tips to grow your media workflows and business today.
Hey, my name is Tyler Purcell here with Broadcast to Post. Business, schools, and government infrastructure planners are researching audio-visual upgrade projects for the new year. Whether it's building an entirely new building or refreshing technology for conference rooms, classrooms, and meeting spaces, in this video we aim to give you the information you need to decide what equipment you'll need, how to budget, and install everything successfully. All right, we're gonna kick this video off with top new trends in AV segment covering trending technology, including hybrid meeting spaces, auto tracking cameras, interactive displays, UC control, LED walls, and voting systems. Later, we're bringing on our Keynote Media panel of engineers to the podcast to review AV equipment strategy. I have so much respect for these guys, man. They are out there on the front lines with customers, actually listening to their needs and figuring out the design and install components for AV projects. They typically battle test manufacturer equipment and can be very honest about what works and what doesn't. Our panel of experts will provide insight into AV products that work and the essential information your team needs to get that next AV design and install off the ground. Stick around at the end for a live Q&A. Let's get to the top trends we are seeing with AV. First on the list, hybrid high-flex meeting spaces. In businesses, government, and schools, meetings are often the backbone to getting things done. It's expected that 81% of all meetings will be hybrid in the near future. Now that both remote and in-office workers have joined the conversation, our meetings look different, and so should our meeting spaces. So what is hybrid? Well, hybrid is getting people to communicate, whether in the office or at home, on a device. Connecting audio, camera, shared screen, making the experience and interactions the same regardless of location. There's also high flex, which is less of a specific feature and more of a strategy people take towards hybrid. The key word is flexibility or choice of the meeting attendee. High flex is providing technology solutions within a meeting space. So in-person and remote meeting attendees have the same ability to participate. For example, in a school setting, each class session and learning activity is offered in person and synchronously online. Students can decide how to participate. To be high flex often means it goes beyond just sharing video and audio, but also virtual whiteboards, huddle rooms, and other elements that may be useful in a meeting space. So why would people need to use hybrid or high flex setups? Well, for starters, schools. Hybrid classrooms can help with low enrollment issues. Your school can offer students the ability to join remotely and have an in-classroom experience. In a business setting, for a general workforce able to fully collaborate regardless of office location, or if you have staff working from home. Hybrid rooms often replace a portion of traditional face-to-face instruction with online activities, such as videos, lectures, online discussions, or projects. Blended learning combines in-person classes and interaction with supplemental online educational elements. Online learning materials aren't intended to replace face-to-face class time, unlike hybrid courses, but instead, materials are designed to build upon what was covered in class. Hybrid, flexible, or high-flex courses integrate face-to-face classes with an online learning experience. High-flex courses differ from hybrid and blended courses in that students are given the choice to attend class in person or via video conferencing software such as Zoom. Students can switch back and forth throughout the semester. Next up, auto-tracking PTZ camera for meeting spaces is also a brand new and pretty cool hot trend, especially when we're talking about improving that hybrid meeting experience for staff or attendees at home. So let's talk about auto-tracking cameras. The idea is to eliminate the need for an in-meeting operator to run the camera. No IT person necessary. The easiest example of this is in a classroom. The teacher can hit the record button and just focus on the teaching. The camera can then follow the instructors as they move around the space. This also gives an IT person their time back, since they don't need to be constantly monitoring the operations within a meeting. There are two main types of auto tracking features we see today. Some cameras have both, actually. Auto tracking and auto framing. Auto framing is the method used to keep the primary subject of a video in focus at the center of the shoot. Auto tracking is the actual locking in on a subject. There are two methods of tracking. Some use audio while others use motion-based tracking. Each have their positive and negatives. Motion tracking can be great when you have a single presenter in front of a room. However, if you have a lot of people moving around the area of the image, motion sensors can get confused and start to fail. Audio tracking is fantastic within a conference room. However, as of today, it requires multiple products integrated together, and it's a tad bit more expensive. Caveats aside, using audio tracking is by far the best auto tracking solution for meeting rooms. Here's how it works. A program will create preset sound zone locations within a room. When audio in that zone starts to go longer for, let's say, 2 seconds, you can program that camera to zoom in on the speaker's location. It's very cool when you see it, and the customers we've done this for are raving about it. Like everything, there are some caveats. The PTZ camera needs to stay in a locked off location. If anyone physically moves the camera, it would need to be reprogrammed. Also, you really do need a good ceiling microphone in the room to accurately identify zones within a space. Overall though, auto tracking PTZ cameras make hybrid meeting spaces more engaging. It's way more interesting experience than the boring traditional locked off static camera. Now let's talk about interactive displays. The traditional whiteboard is dead. They're gone. Interactive displays like the award-winning ClearTouch have been with us for a while, but they've just become so much better over the years that it's time to seriously consider getting. Think of it as a giant touchscreen computer in your meeting space with a whiteboard built on top of it. It's great when you're teaching software as you can both teach the interface of that software while simultaneously zooming in and out using a digital highlighter or markers to make notes. There's a digital keyboard so you can type. You can load up documents, PDFs, PowerPoints, you name it. It's really a game changer for meetings in classrooms. They also work as interactive monitors. You can just as easily bring your own device, like a Mac using AirPlay or connect via HDMI, and have full control over your computer using this giant touchscreen display. These interactive displays can directly connect to your hybrid high-flex setup via Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Meets, or other platforms, making it interactive for both attendees at home and in the meeting space. The App Store is fantastic. Everything from Zoom to Google Docs to Canvas have a built-in app. For your IT teams, there is also a campus-wide control feature that allows administrators to turn on and off devices as well as broadcast campus-wide messages if there was an emergency on campus. All right, guys, next up, video walls. LED wall prices are getting more affordable. They're getting a little easier to deploy, maintain, and use. We're starting to see a lot of lobby spaces in large conference rooms start to move away from monitors and into high-resolution LED displays. But there's some things you need to know about LED. First, pixel pitch. LED walls have something called pixel pitch, which is the space between each pixel on the wall. The lower the pixel pitch, the higher the resolution of the screen. Depending on how far away your subject is from the wall, you may need a smaller pixel pitch, otherwise people will start to see the lines between the pixels. You'll also need to decide if your wall is permanent or it needs to be mobile. There are different tile types depending on if that wall needs to be built once or needs to be moved from location to location. There are also indoor and outdoor considerations with some LED tiles that are built to be weather resistant. The brightness on the LED can sometimes be really bright. Sometimes that's great. However, if you're recording a meeting, it can also cause silhouetting on the speakers in the space. You will likely need to pre-configure the brightness on the wall depending on your application. Air conditioning should also be considered. LED walls and the processing server can put off a lot of heat. The HVAC requirements of the space is an important one to not skip. Now, let's talk about unified communications control. Unified communication is not really a single product. It's the connecting of multiple solutions together. Voice call, conference room control, messaging, to name a few. It's the brain of your conference room or meeting space. It has to be simple to use and completely dummy-proof. Research from Barco shows 50% of employees have trouble connecting to the display and only 26% find it easy to connect to cameras and speak. Also, on average, people use 6 different web conferencing solutions to meet with others virtually. You need to make sure that your UC systems are compatible with core tools like Zoom or Microsoft Teams. The system needs to be agnostic and ready for anything. That also means your UC system should be plug and play with HDMI cable, DisplayPort, AirPlay, or Google Cast. All the microphones, cameras, and other input devices need to be neatly configured, which takes time, design, and execution. The touchscreen control panel also needs to be simple to use. Having a programmer like we do here at Keynote creates a simple UI so people can just walk in and quickly start the meeting. To add a cherry on top, touchscreen room scheduling completes the package. These schedule devices connect to Outlook or Google Calendar. Everyone knows the room's availability, whether you're in person or checking in on a shared calendar. The panel also lets you schedule a meeting on the fly. There is a gotcha though. With the current chip shortage and supply chain issues, a lot of the hardware required for UC systems are on back order. Some product lines are 6 to 8 months on back order right now. Having a first, second, or third option may save you a few months, or if you're patient, just keep in mind that it may be a while before that meeting space is fully up and running. All right, guys, last trend, AV over IP. It stands for Audio Visual over Internet Protocol. Essentially, it's the transmission of audiovisual data over a network such as LAN or the internet. As opposed to traditional AV environments, AV over IP refers to the use of standard networking equipment to transmit and switch video and audio, like an Ethernet cable. There are so many applications for AV over IP, it's an overwhelming task to try to explain it all in just one video. So I'll stick to a few examples and keep in mind there are a lot more than a few applications we might miss. For starters, when all of your AV equipment is connected to a network, it can be controlled from anywhere. That means your IT department can remotely turn devices on and off or make modifications without being in that space. Similar to the example we gave earlier with controlling interactive displays across an entire campus. AV over IP also makes meeting management a lot easier. For example, for a city council meeting, a clerk can pre-upload the agenda meeting document, PowerPoints, images, and minutes to every council member's computer or tablet. That same administrator can play out the meeting slides to displays networked throughout a building. Things get really flexible and interesting when you have multiple meeting spaces in a building. Let's just say there's an important city council meeting and you just can't fit everyone in the room. You could pre-configure overflow rooms and conference rooms in a building so that more people can attend the meeting. That also includes using microphones and cameras in the overflow rooms to take comments from attendees that are not physically in the same space. Continuing with the government example, AV over IP also allows voting systems to connect with other devices. So you could have votes added directly to the meeting's minutes or display within a local television broadcast. One of Keycode Media's government customers has connected their fire department, LAPD, and EOC building located across their city. They can send and receive audio-video feeds from any building across the city. Hopefully this gave you some basic information about trending AV solutions in the business and government space. If you'd like to get deeper on any specific AV products or need consulting on a turnkey solution, please contact Keycode Media. We are here joined by our excellent AV design team at Keycode Media, Marlo, Marco, and Crystal. Thanks for coming, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
If everyone's watching this live has questions, please submit the questions in the chat, and we'll answer them in a few. So obviously, Keycode Media is out there installing and supporting a variety of AV systems across the US, typically addressing AV solutions for an entire building, sometimes with multiple classrooms, conference rooms, and government rooms. That's the perspective that we're getting today. So let's start by breaking down the trends we've seen on AV installs and how they impact infrastructure planners' approach to future projects. Welcome to our panel. So the first thing we're going to do is talk, of course, about our hybrid meeting spaces. And why don't we start with you, Marlo? Why don't we talk about what people are doing in classrooms, conference rooms, and government spaces in terms of tech?
Well, right now, what's happening is they want to get more of a hybrid feel to where, you have some people in the office or classrooms and some people remote from their houses. So when it comes to what tech pieces go to what space to make the hybrid like a good experience, meeting experience, it all starts with the space, right? We need to know and understand what the needs are, whether it be, camera placements, positioning of the equipment where the AV rack's going to be, what server you'll be using, either Zooms or Teams, and speaker placements, microphones, and what type of computer you'll be using. So all of these things, and even dimensions of the room and the space, and all these come together so we can provide a better the best solution possible. So yeah.
Any follow-up, guys? Okay. So here's another question for you guys. What do facility planners need to keep in mind when planning hybrid spaces in terms of IT considerations? Obviously, IT is a big deal because clearly you're going to have to change quite a bit of the infrastructure to deal with this stuff. So why don't we pass it on to Crystal?
Well, definitely at this point, when you're deploying any technology in any AV space, IT becomes your very best friend, because you are going to be sending technology down their network path. So you want to make sure that you have really good relations with any IT department that you will be installing in. And then, have a very clear conversation with the IT guys, making sure that they're aware of what type of signals you'll be introducing into their network. The question about VLAN comes to mind. Also, just whether your network for your AV system will be isolated or it will be intermingled with their overall corporate network. So those are the kind of things to consider to make sure that everything plays nice together.
And of course, IT is not the only thing we're dealing with here. We also have to deal with power. That's kind of Marco's specialty. So Marco, talk to us a little bit about the power and the electrical situations, and of course, running these cables compared to other installations.
I think it's important to consider the location, discovery of cable paths, structures on the wall to determine whether you're going to be able to run cables through the walls or they're going to be surface mounted. It's also important to assess any structural piece on the wall that is going to be supporting large displays, be it interactive displays or just a LED wall panel or just large displays. It's also important to have electrical outlets where you're going to need them, such as projector screen, cameras, etc.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. So one thing, of course, is that we're going to talk about in this video is going to be about kind of management of these new tools. And I know Marlo, we've been talking about Crestron and how it plays into this whole thing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I don't know if everybody is aware of the announcement of Crestron partnering up with One Beyond, which is pretty neat, because their technology is always improving, but especially their cameras. One of the things that provides a good experience is how the cameras operate, right? They have this thing called speaker tracking, which the camera focuses on and frames whoever is speaking, which in turn follows them as they move, right? As they move. And so the ability to connect to the speaker, right, for everyone who's listening remotely, it allows for more a engaging experience, right? And also there's another feature for that One Beyond camera. It's called group framing, which I think it's pretty insanely cool, because as people enter into the picture, the group framing feature allows it to automatically adjust the camera to either pan, tilt, and zoom, so everyone in the room is perfectly framed inside the camera. So I think that's pretty cool.
That is really cool. And what about Zoom Room's NDI?
When it comes to that, I will lead on to our specialist, Crystal Velasco.
Crystal, it's all you.
Well, yeah, definitely. So one of the things that NDI has really brought in is the ability to be able to send video over a network. And, network Cat6 cables are something that's almost always present in any kind of conferencing space or huddle spaces, because that's just part of the technology that's deployed in these rooms. You'll always have a network cable there. And so NDI utilizes that infrastructure to be able to send video over the IP stream. And so you're not having to rerun new cables just to be able to set up cameras or microphone audio. All of it is over IP. So what that brings in is a simplicity of use, being able to connect conference rooms to the network, to be able to broadcast or to send video over a stream, or even like this, like a production where you're having to connect multiple locations into one cohesive production space. So
Gotcha. And staying with you just for one more second, because I do want to talk about how we're dealing with microphones in these spaces, because it's a very important subject. And I know
yes.
you're the expert.
Yeah, there is nothing like bad audio to distract people from any kind of idea exchange or meetings. So microphone is a very important subject. One thing in like hybrid spaces, like for example, in a meeting space or in a classroom, there's typically just not one speaker, one main host, right? There's going to be some interactions where you've got people giving in their inputs on a subject matter, or even in a classroom where an instructor is having a conversation with other students and they're exchanging ideas and sharing answers. And a microphone, especially how it's placed, how it's used, is very important, because those are the kind of things that will allow your far end participants to feel like they are part of the meeting, part of the conversation. So ceiling array microphones, pendant microphones, those are really good tools to use to be able to capture the overall audio in any given space. So like, for example, in our conference room in Burbank, we utilize a ceiling microphone that allows for all the participants in that room to be heard in the far end, so that anybody that's joining remotely due to, any kind of code restrictions or anything like that, they feel like, oh, okay, I'm in this meeting because I can hear so and so comment about what was just said. So
Sure.
those becomes very important.
Sure, absolutely. All right, great. So let's move on to our second topic here today, which is going to be a little more specific, and it's going to be directly about AV over IP. So we're seeing a lot of different protocols bleeding into this space. Obviously, there's NDI, there's IPMX, there's Dante for audio. How are these protocols and how is this system simplifying the design of AV infrastructure for facilities? Obviously, a lot of cabling, right? Because there's a lot less cabling required for this. But I want to hear from you guys on the ground level, what you guys are feeling about this. And we'll start with Marco, because he's the cabling guy. And tell me a little bit about what you think in terms of the cabling aspects of these new protocols.
Well, it's definitely simpler, cleaner. You don't need big spaces or big trays as it was done in the past. For instance, we did the audio for a client where we transformed everything from analog to Dante. So now you're just running Ethernet lines into the rooms, and then you do your in the room distribution going analog. So it's definitely cleaner and cost effective as well.
Sure. Are there any gotchas with the installation, copper versus fiber? What have you seen in terms of that? Marco?
Fiber will give you more flexibility, more bandwidth, but at the same time, it's more delicate to be treated. So there's a competition going on with between copper and fiber. I would say that fiber would be used more for the long runs, and then you go into copper. Gotcha.
Now, of course, like we talked about earlier in initial statement, one of the biggest things, of course, is the IT infrastructure, right? Because you're not going to just throw this in your network, right? This is going to be something that's going to be a little more isolated. One of my specialties is IT, so this subject I love talking about because it's going to be different infrastructure than what you're going to normally use. Faster switches. We're going to have definitely a little bit more infrastructure. It's going to have to be a lot faster as well. So, who wants to pick up the subject about the IT side of things? Is that Mark? Is that going to be Marlo?
Well, I would hand it off to Crystal because I know he has a beautiful experience with that.
All right, Crystal, take it.
Well, I mean, definitely IT planning is a very important part of AV spaces, right? Because um, you need to be able to be aware of how much traffic you're introducing to any given network. So typically when we do installs, the design is always an island because of just the amount of bandwidth that we will use in a given network when we're sending video and audio together. Typically, you'll have a control VLAN and your video VLAN and your audio VLAN, just to keep everything kind of managed properly. There are some facilities where you'll get into where they would need to be able to introduce it into a much larger network. And that's really the important conversation that you'll need to have with your IT. And that's where VLANs really come into importance, because then you can traverse switches without having to make your bandwidth coincide with their mail server or anything else. Perfect example, we had a install where the IT conversation wasn't as clear, and we ended there was an issue where we were spilling over our traffic over to their regular network, and it took some of their networks down because of that. So that IT conversation has to be prioritized prior to deployment. You need to let their IT department know like how much traffic you're putting in, how much IP devices you'll have on the network, just so that they are aware and they can prepare properly for it. For design, we'll go with our own recommended switches, but sometimes some clients will say, no, we provide our own switches. We're a Cisco house, or we're a Netgear house, or we do all this stuff. So that back and forth communication with IT becomes very, very important and essential.
Okay, great. What up? So AV, the video side of things. What about the audio side of things? What about Dante and stuff like that? What are the differences? Are we separating them on different switches? What is your feeling on that?
Yeah, we tend to definitely separate that. Video tends to have more of a bandwidth hog as far as network space goes. So just to kind of keep it clean, we'll create separate VLANs between audio and video, and then able to marry them at some point through a bridge, just so that we're making sure that the traffic is coming in clean and there's no interruptions. When
Right.
last thing you want video dropping because you've got other things on the network. So
Sure.
Yeah.
And like we talked about earlier, management too is going to be separate as well.
yes, and then that's where you have that conversation with IT. They'll want to know how to monitor what traffic is looking like, so you want to use the tools that are available. I know different manufacturers have definitely different tools available. For example, NDI has a suite of tools to be able to just monitor the stream, monitor the bandwidth that's being used. I believe Audinate has some of those things with their Dante controller that is able to tell you like how much traffic it's putting out on the network.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, I guess the next question is kind of whether or not you see this coming to the classroom versus is this going to be more of a government business thing? I kind of see this coming to the classroom in the near future just because of cost, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of the clients that we've worked with, one of the things that they are trying to mitigate is that there's been, ever since COVID happened, there's still a little bit of hesitation for people to be in person on a lot of the schools. So just to be able to still provide the content or the education that people are needing, hybrid spaces have become a norm for a lot of campuses. It allows them to have a regular class with in-person participants, but then it doesn't limit for the people that aren't just comfortable yet to be in person with other people.
Right.
So then it opens up that availability for where you have far-end students who are just like dialing into the classroom and still be engaged with the professor and still be able to get the academic requirements to get that class, or to be able to meet the requirements for their education.
Gotcha. On this subject, we got a question that just came in. I just want to answer it really quickly here. What is IPIMX or IPIMX?
IPMX is a new standard that is that's coming around. That's they're trying to. It's basically AV over IP, so just similar to like NDI or Dante audio video. So it's fairly new. I haven't really seen much implementation of it yet, but it'll be interesting to see how well accepted it will be in the industry.
Cool. Very cool. Okay, next subject. Going to start from scratch here. Going to talk about LED walls. So obviously we've seen LED walls grow, right? And there's a lot of applications for LED walls, from signage to obviously classrooms. And so I want to hear what you guys are talking to customers about and what you guys are installing when it comes to LED walls. What are the things that people need to know before buying? Obviously, there's obviously a lot of different things, from pixel pitch all the way up to whether it can take care of whether it can be outdoors for weather, obviously temperatures and physical sizes. What about purpose built versus not purpose built? Why don't we have a topic? Why don't we talk a little bit about that? Is that going to be you, Crystal?
Well, actually, I just wanted to highlight that the person behind Marco right now is building an LED wall.
LED wall right there. We're live.
So,
Getting a wall built.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But usually for LED walls, it's, like what you said, it's purpose built, right? It really depends on the clientele's. For most of the projects that we do that we provide LED walls, I know there's one for, emergency centers where they need to have multiple, sources live in front of them. So they use that. I know we've seen some in council chambers, and and not necessarily so much in the classroom, because I don't think classroom setting, there's not really a need for that. But there's also commercialized buildings that that I've seen that they have large LED walls just for display purposes, because of like we said, like the pixelation it's a lot cleaner, and just how it translate live, it's just amazing to see. It's beautiful.
Yeah, exactly.
Wanted to add there, the one thing that the LED walls bring are the wow factor. As you can see with what is behind Marco, you definitely want to plan for the space that you'll need for these things, because they are large. But also, like, something to consider is that, like, if you're putting up an LED wall and you're planning to use that as a backdrop for like a production or anything like that, you want to test your cameras to make sure that that wall doesn't saturate the brightness of the image, and where the person in front of it is just silhouetted and you can't see any facial features. So those kind of things to consider. But definitely the wow factor for LED walls are a big plus. It allows you to be able to, in a large scale, present content, and like what Marlo had talked about with emergency operating centers. Those are clients of ours where they will employ LED walls because they're able to, with that large real estate, look at a lot of the sources that they're needing to monitor on an emergency operating center situation. So those are pluses for what LED walls can do or bring into the table for AV.
Sure. And of course, one of the things that I know about LED walls personally, of course, is that with regular LCDs, they're not very bright, right? So like if you have a monitor, just a regular, let's just say a 65-inch LCD TV set outside, they're not very bright. So that whole outdoor thing is very valuable for LEDs. So, and on that subject matter, what do people need to know before they buy? Because people kind of understand TVs, right? They know they can go to the store, they can look at them, they can buy them, they can hang them. It's no big deal. But what are the gotchas with LED walls?
I would say like have a space for it first, and to really plan it out, because it's, as you can see behind Marco, it's a lot of steps in creating, or in having to install these video walls. But yeah, I mean, Crystal, do you have any experiences, especially with one of our emergency centers that we've done?
Well, definitely. So with LED video walls, you want to consider power.
Mm-hmm.
Some technology will allow you to be able to send power from a power supply that's not necessarily behind the wall. It could be in a machine rack somewhere, and you have long cables coming in providing power. But then there's some LED walls like the ones behind Marco where you have to have certain outlets, a number of them behind that wall to be able to just provide power to those LED panels.
Right. And power is a huge thing. And so is
Yeah.
heat. You have to think about HVAC as well. So, Marco, can you highlight a little bit about the HVAC situations?
Well, that's to be considered in the space where you're going to be installing it. We did notice the heat generation out of this screen that we're installing over here. And it's also important to consider the structure behind the wall, because there's about 4 layers from the frame to the actual front of the screen. And that generates heat, and it's also a lot of weight.
Sure.
So those are things that are very important to consider.
Marco,
Sure.
how large is that video wall behind you? You know?
This one right here is a 7x12, and we're installing 2 of them.
Wow. And wow, that's pretty good. Now, what about outdoor? What's your percentage of outdoor versus indoor walls?
From my experience, we've done more indoor than outdoor right now.
Wow.
But I would think that there's more demand, depending on the client, to have outdoor
Outdoor
displays.
displays, of course.
Yeah, because you'll need to consider, enclosures just to
Sure.
protect the technology from the elements,
Sure.
security as well, because then, you'll have some people who are just like, "Ooh, I like one of those."
Sure.
So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I know potentially like mega churches you typically see those outside of the church, outside of their sanctuary. Even outdoor stadium arenas, you see them so often because of the fact that it's very distinct even in outside environments.
Right. Exactly. It looks good. That's the idea,
Yes.
right? So why don't we shift subjects a tiny bit, and let's talk about interactive displays. Okay. This is still talking about displays, I guess, right? This is one of the big things we've covered in our top trends video. And we're seeing more of these displays being used, especially in classrooms. The curriculums are getting used to it in schools because you've got a PC built in and they can run their programs on the displays. So what are you guys seeing with the influx of these displays, and how are they going, and how are you guys have been installing them?
well, interactive displays plays gives a very positive to the hybrid model, because traditionally classrooms will have their whiteboards, or even like older ones will have their chalkboards, and trying to capture those images that are being drawn or written on those boards, like through a camera, sometimes you'll be against against a light or something, you'll get a reflection off of those things. So digitizing that feature with interactive boards helps to be able to convey the message to your far end participants. A lot of the technology like Clear Touch will also integrate, like your whiteboard type feel with markers onto their displays, and you basically are able to capture that and send it without having to worry about, okay, is my camera placement good? You don't have to worry about that. It's just capturing the image as it is being written on the surface. So yeah, they've been a big plus in this high flex hybrid spaces.
Great. And can you tell me some of the brands out there, and what different brands are doing?
I've seen a lot of Clear Touch. Those come with I believe they go up to like about 86-inch displays. They allow you to be able to put in a computer module behind their displays and annotate above what is being displayed. So if you've got a PDF that you're presenting on, you can come in and highlight it and circle, and even make lines to emphasize what you're reviewing. Prometheus is another brand out there that I've seen. There's actually a lot of manufacturers out there that are creating these interactive displays.
Wow, that's great. So basically, you're saying the whiteboard is dead, the chalkboard is dead. This is the future.
Yes,
Exactly.
And you don't need to have a PTZ camera shooting it, because that's the other problem, of course, is, you know, reflections, stuff like that. It's hard to see. So this thing is going to show up, and then kids can log in remotely and they can see exactly what's going on. So this is great. It's the future for the classrooms, basically.
Yeah.
What about government? Have you guys been installing this in any government facilities?
Yeah, we have a client down in Orange County that requested one of these interactive displays to be in their executive board chambers. And we
Wow.
put it in a mobile cart so that it can be pulled and positioned however they need. And it's the same kind of use. They're able to present their presentations on this board, be able to highlight it, interact with it. Because there's a PC in it, and it's a, you know, the display is basically like a 10 touch points on the screen. You're able to use it as a touch screen, so you can zoom in, zoom out, and, you know, flip pages or go to even web pages if you're presenting anything that's over the web.
Right. Great. So staying on government, right? We'll stick with government for a minute. I know you guys do a lot of government facilities. I mean, Keycode Media does a lot of government facilities, of course. Let's talk specifically about government for a couple seconds here, and talking about managing council chamber upgrades, right? And this is a big thing, because people are starting to put in PTZ cameras, these displays, kind of all the technology we've been talking about is being put into these council meetings, council meeting spaces, I should say. So the key here is, how does it all integrate with voting machines, and how do we deal with meeting and agenda management? And what are some of the flex space tools that they're using right now?
Yeah, AV has been instrumental for a lot of government spaces. First off, you know, during COVID, there was very much a lot of restriction from in-person type meetings, and the AV technology was able to provide that that way for people, for city governments to be able to meet still. And with AV, you're able to integrate your voice over IP phones or even analog phones, so that if you have a hybrid meeting space where you have some of the council members, like for city governments, that are present and some are over, you know, remote, when they're having a conversation on the microphone, you can hear them in the speakers in the room. They can introduce a caller in who might not be there present, but still participate in the meeting. And that allows them to have, like, you know, a two-way conversation that will allow them to proceed with their agendas. And then also be able to, you know, do their voting and their talk about the issues of government. And one of the things that AV does for government spaces like this is basically they're able to share to the public, to their constituents, the businesses of government that concern citizens. So,
Right, sure, of course. And that leads into the voting situation, the voting machines, you know, because we're moving kind of away from paper and more into electronic voting. You know, it's kind of all changed in the last couple of years, especially. So tell me a little bit about that and the voting machines aspect.
yeah, so there's a couple of technologies that we've been deploying out there. One of them is called VoteLinks. And VoteLinks is a meeting management, agenda management type of technology where it puts an interactive display on the seat of each council member in a council chambers. They're able to cast their votes on the display and also review documents that are over their, you know, servers, or and look at the agenda items that are being discussed in any meeting that's happening within city council. It will integrate with agenda management tools that are being used out there, like Agenda Quick, and they're able to record their minutes as the meetings go by. So if there's an item that needs to be voted on, council members are interacting with the displays in front of them, casting their votes, and all of those are being recorded in minutes that the city clerk can use to be able to keep in their records. So
Wow.
there's another technology out there by Decentis, by Bosch. That is also a meeting management tool. It integrates microphones with touch panel displays on the base stations. So they're able also to cast votes, and all of those are also recorded within a server for record keeping.
Wow, that's really great. So it's really changing the way things are done in government in terms of the voting situation, just local voting, not even like their town voting, but just in those chambers.
Yes.
Very cool. Okay, so the last kind of big subject we've got to go over today, of course, is equipment availability. Everybody's yawning about this one because this has been a huge problem since COVID, of course. And so sometimes it can take like a year, maybe 2 years to get equipment. Sometimes you have to really pre-plan. What are you guys seeing about this? What's the feedback you're getting from the clients in terms of equipment availability? Because sometimes, as we know, people are having to switch pieces of equipment with something else just because they have no choice.
Well, definitely for this subject, it is really important to work with your integrators, right? Like Keycode Media. Utilize the tools that, like Keycode has, to be able to give you a forecast of what availability is like. If you need to be able to plan 6 months ahead or 1 year ahead, just to make sure that the equipment that you need will be there, work with your sales rep, work with their internal teams to be able to forecast and tell you that, oh, okay, this particular product is about 12 months out. And then at the same token, you can also ask them, I was like, okay, what's an alternative? What can I get? What can I use that is similar or the same as this one that's a year out but readily available? And we'll be more than happy to be able to provide a plan A, plan B, plan C that will get you your project up and running and in time.
Right, exactly. And then of course one of the other problems is you get your piece of equipment and it doesn't work. I mean, I assume you guys have seen this too. Some manufacturers are rushing manufacturing and not doing a lot of testing. LED walls have a lot of components. And so you might get one little tiny component that fails on delivery. What are you guys seeing on that front?
Well, definitely for that kind of situations, it's very important to be aware of what your warranty is like. Most vendors will provide advanced replacements for their products if it fails, and you want to take advantage of those kind of things. If something out of the box does not work, make sure you reach back out to the manufacturer, and Keycode will do that for you. We'll reach out, we'll take care of the business, and make sure that you get your product and you get your project up and running.
Right. And of course, have some extra budget just in case, right? Have a little bit extra money in the back end, just in case at the last minute you got to switch to something entirely different. Because a lot of times people are buying stuff based on price, right? They're not thinking about necessarily when it's going to show up. Initially, when you first buy it, you don't know, right? And so having a little bit of budget at the end is kind of important. All right. Well, that kind of concludes these questions. What we're going to do next is kind of open it up to the people who are logging in right now and asking us questions. We're going to start with John Mercer, who asks, shall I say, for higher ed customers, including AVOP, there are significant performance, bandwidth, image quality differences between various options like Crestron, Liberty, QSC, and so on. Or is there the selection generally based on ease of management with other AV ingredients? What is the difference in quality, shall I say?
Marlo, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sorry. Can you repeat that? There was a lot going on there.
Yeah, sorry. Is there performance differences between the different options, between Crestron, Liberty QSC, these different brands?
Does it? Okay. The intention is not to bash anybody, so I'm not going to mention manufacturers.
Sure.
It's just a variation on I would just say variation on compatibility and just based on experience with these products. you know, I'm an Extron guy. So for me, I came from an Extron background, so I know the ins and outs, and you know, the compatibilities and so forth with the good and bad. So I know that firsthand. But when it comes to like Crestron, QSC, you know, it for the most part, those big manufacturers are pretty compatible with one another. And for Liberty, I'm assuming there's some, you know, there's smaller equipments in the for Liberty manufacturers, and you know, those, yeah, it's hard because Liberty is not really a big is not really as big as Crestron and Extron. So I haven't really worked with Liberty products, but it's a good alternative, I would say. And
Okay.
for QSCs and biamps, those are good. Those are awesome DSPs. So whether you go with Extron or, you know, Crestron with some, you know, amplifiers, speakers, or even microphones and such, you know, QSC and biamps are awesome.
Gotcha. Well, and the other thing, of course, in terms of brands is, of course, image quality. What do you guys, have you guys been seeing image quality differences between the different brands?
No, I mean, as far as image quality, everyone that's producing equipment right now has had some pretty good results in their images. And I mean, just to add to the last point, I think it's very important for higher education. One of the trends that I'm seeing a lot more now is that clients or end users are asking for proof of concept. And that becomes really valuable because, you know, it allows for end users to get their hands on the equipment. So for questions like image quality, for like, you know, audio quality, all that stuff, don't be shy to ask your reseller or your integrator, go, hey, can I test this out for a couple of days or a couple of weeks? We want to see how it performs in the network. We want to see what the image quality is. We want to see what the user experience is, so that they have confidence in committing to a design. A lot of higher educations are going to be mostly one particular product because they utilize whatever monitoring system that that particular product have. Like Extron has their global scripter that allows them to be able to see each device in the campus, what the state of that device is, whether it's up and running or down, or it's having issues with the network. And it helps their help desk to be able to address those issues to eliminate any kind of downtime for any of these hybrid classrooms that are being deployed, or even, you know, conference rooms.
Right. And that kind of leads me into another subject, which is it a lot easier to manage? I mean, it's kind of a duh answer, but is it?
You know, more important than being able to see what the state of a device is at any given time. And, you know, if you're a Cal State school or a UC school where you're dealing with hundreds of rooms, you know, your IT staff or your support staff is probably just a handful, and you're not able to just deploy them and check each room. So having some kind of a hub or a monitoring station to see what each classroom state is a big plus. Because then you can, you know, you don't have to wait for that teacher to call, hey, I can't work my projector or my display. As soon as you see a warning or an error message, send, you know, your help desk people over there to address it before even class starts.
Right. And as we were talking about earlier in the other video that started before this, having one guy manage everything, right? You don't have to have a dozen IT guys on campus. And especially with schools where they can't afford to have that, right? They can't afford to have 5 IT guys on campus at all times. So yeah, I mean, I think it saves a lot of money and a lot of headache for people.
Yeah.
Can you give a couple of examples where you've seen this in play at some of your
school up north that we had done an install? They were an Extron house, so they utilized global scripter, and we probably done about 70 classrooms with them now. And we after each installation of a classroom, all these devices are put into that system, and their help desk is able to see exactly what, you know, what the status of each of the equipment that's in the classroom. Each classroom has a PTZ camera for video capture. It's got a ceiling microphone that allows you to capture audio. And then it's got the AV presentation from Extron that allows them to present their content from their PC or laptop or bring your own device. So they're able to see the status of any of those equipment and not have to wait for a teacher to walk into the room to get ready for the class that's coming up to say that, oh, there's a problem with my display. The help desk can see that ahead of time and be able to address it before the call comes in.
Marlo, do you have any examples?
Yeah, so like what Crystal mentioned, the ones that we deployed with like almost 80 rooms, they used the Extron control systems, and so with that, they use this management called global GBE to manage, just the monitoring of each devices, and it's I think what's unique about it too is that it's user friendly, and it's not something that that is hard to do or hard to see, and also it's just very, you could do it from the office. You can monitor it, like what Crystal said, before the classroom even starts, and and there's actually a way to not just have, if it's just an IT guy, if it's just one person or two people, like they can do it from anywhere. They could do it remotely even. So that's what's very so user friendly it is when it comes to the Extron control system that we deployed.
Nice. It's very exciting, actually. It's pretty cool. It's liberating, right? It's pretty cool. Okay, so next subject. This is Dan from Colorado Springs says, what are you guys hearing about AV over IP for DoD? I mean, this is a big deal because of security problems,
Yeah, we had a client that was a financial institution, and that was the one thing that they were very strict on. And what's great is that companies like Crestron and Extron, they are very much into security, just like the end user. So we were able to send a couple of the technology pieces over to the financial institution, and they reviewed it. It passed all of the certificates that it needed to pass, and for other items that they saw that was a vulnerability, the manufacturer addressed it quickly and in a timely manner. We reported back to Crestron that, hey, there's a concern about this, and they were able to address it and make sure that the end user was happy with the type of security that these pieces have. And that's I think a lot of the AV vendors have that in mind. It's part of their checklist of, before they put products to market, make sure that those features are there to be able to be used for like financial institutions or DoD.
Okay, so it has happened and it does work. It's not like this
Yes.
is something that's impossible to do.
No.
And is there a limited amount of brands that can do this? What's your feeling on that?
At least the big players in AV have addressed these issues, so they're
Okay.
pretty much up to par with what the standards are. Not quite sure about the other brands, so there might be some that have not yet addressed that issue. So it's definitely one of those things where you want to work with your integrator to make sure that it will pass what your security requirements are. And that's where, demoing equipment comes in to be really handy, because at least you can get into your facility, look what it's doing on your network, and then be able to address any vulnerabilities or concerns that you might have.
Gotcha. Cool. Okay, so last question today. Mike from Boston says, when putting together large conference rooms and lecture halls, especially, what are the considerations for having clean audio? I mean, obviously we know this is a huge problem because of echo and stuff like that. What do you guys feel about this?
Well, take a look at the place for sure. I see a lot of conference rooms there that has like glass windows and walls, and that becomes a challenge. But what's great is, you utilize a technology like a DSP, like from QSC or Biamp. They have AEC built into their equipment, so it for them to be able to allow go by, for instance, fight the challenges that some conference rooms will present to you. So those things are built in within like the DSP that you put your analog microphones to, or even with the ceiling array microphones that are offered by like Shure or Sennheiser. Those are built in there, so it allows you to be able to not have to worry about those kind of challenges.
So my name's Tyler Purcell. Thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching Broadcast to Post. Please make sure to subscribe to the podcast to receive future episodes. Follow Keycode Media on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram to receive news on additional AV, broadcast, and post-production technology content. See you next time, folks.